Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layout. Okay campers, rise and shine, and don't forget your booties because it's a cold one out there today. You heard me right, we are back for another Groundhog Day hop. This hop has been going on since 2022. This was my layout back then. I also did a layout in 2023, and then here is my layout for 2024. These layouts originated from this page map sketch from September of 2019. So I'm going to use the sketch again, just as if it's Groundhog's Day. I pulled out the Simple Stories Say Cheese Fantasy Collection to document some photos from the Prince Charming Carousel. I also pulled out this bubblegum paper from Doodlebug because these smaller Say Cheese collections don't have a lot of B-sided paper. I knew I also wanted to use this darker paper that had the different colored polka dots on it and the striped paper to tie all of the colors in. I'm just trying to decide how big I want that pink paper to be on the left and right hand side of the layout. Now the original layout back in 2022, I was not a part of the Groundhog's Day hop. I was actually using the Follow a Sketch February, and they had given this one-page sketch from Page Maps, and I knew I was going to stretch it into 2-page. It went up on Groundhog's Day. And when I learned about the hop in 2023, I was like, why not use that sketch? Because it's a really cool sketch. I love the way that that layout turned out. And I feel like the layouts, even though they are very similar, are also vastly different. I also felt like I needed a little bit more color, so I did pull out this yellow paper. It is definitely not my favorite. It is way too busy for me. I thought that if I used my border punch that kind of looks like a banner to me, it would give it just a little bit of extra color. It wouldn't be as busy because it was in a smaller dose, but I could get so much contrast, especially against that dark paper with the polka dot. So for this particular layout, I'm gonna have two 4x6s on the right-hand side. I'm also gonna have two 4x6s on the left-hand side, as well as a 3x4, and I'm also gonna be using a 3x4 journaling card that has a carousel on it. I'm trying to decide how big I need to make the polka dotted paper. I knew some of it was going to be covered up with the striped paper as well as the yellow, so I didn't want to waste it. I'm really loving these Say Cheese smaller collections that are specific to the areas of the park, but there's not a lot of paper in the collections, and so I feel like I try to stretch the paper as much as possible. I did decide to ink up all of the edges in the Worn lipstick, which has become my favorite pink. It is a little bit darker than the bubblegum, but I feel like it gives it a really good contrast. I knew that I wanted to back the two photos that are going to be on the right-hand side with the white cardstock, and I knew I was going to use the base of it. But once I got the photos down, I realized that I would not have enough space and I would probably have to cover up areas. So I decided to pull up the photos and just trim down 1/4 of an inch on two sides. It will give me a little bit more wiggle room on the background paper that I'm going to use to map my photos. So once I get them trimmed out, I'm going to adhere them back down to the background paper and then use my layering guides to provide that layer. I do have a tutorial on these and I will link it here if you would like more information on how to use them. These photos were obviously from Disney World, and in the photos is myself, Eli, my sister, and my niece. While the photos on the left-hand side really do focus more on Eli, my niece, and my sister, those 4x6 photos were all me. I really enjoy writing the carousel if I'm having a crappy day or if I'm at Magic Kingdom, simply because I need to get away from the real world. This is my go-to ride. I don't know, there's just something about being on the carousel, especially knowing that the carousel was part of Walt's original idea in regards to why he envisioned Disney World, or actually Disneyland. His kids were actually on a carousel and he was kind of bummed that he wasn't able to enjoy the carousel with them. And so the idea of having a place where he can spend time with his children but also be engaging in the same rides or activities with them is really the concept behind Disney World or Disneyland. So being on the ride when I'm having a crappy day just reminds me how much Walt was a visionary and what we are able to have with Disney World because of his imagination. And that just makes me feel better. So I have no problem being in my 40s and riding the carousel. For the left-hand side of the layout, I did decide to go ahead and just add the photos flat to the layout. I added the 3 photos down first and then added the 3x4 card because I knew that I would probably have to use my T-square ruler and X-Acto knife to trim up the photos just a little bit. So I do want to encourage you guys to check out the playlist listed below. There's lots of people playing along with this hop, and it's always so interesting to see where everyone has originally started and then where they're ending up. I have changed my layout a little bit by maybe adding additional photos or taking photos off. Even though I started with a single page sketch, that first layout that I created, stretching that sketch, I really enjoy the background of this layout. And there's been a couple times that I've wanted to use this concept on other layouts, but I tell myself, nope, I'm only going to use that sketch and that design concept on Ground Hog's Day. It makes it a little bit more special. I did decide to ink up the actual white cardstock, the background area as well, and I really enjoy the added touch of pink around the edge. Of course, I pulled out the border strip, which I have done in every single one of my layouts, and for every single one of them, I've had to trim it because it is not a true 12 by 12. For this particular one, I am going to end up covering it up with a castle. I felt like I needed something else to divide the border strip from the other pattern paper because it just felt like it was getting lost, especially with the dark polka dotted at the bottom and the border strip also being a dark paper. So I did pull out the swimming pool from Doodlebug in the linen and just cut off like 1/8 of an inch. It's super tiny, but I feel like that extra added color really does help separate the darker polka dots from the border strip that's also dark. And of course I had to pull out my T-square ruler to make sure that that was straight. For the 2 photos on the right hand side, I do put the photo that's a little bit further back of me on the horse flat down to the layout, and then the selfie, I do add that up on Fun Foam. So I did pull out some liquid adhesive to add to the back of that photo, and then of course adding my stamping block on top of it to add a little bit of weight. I did purchase from Kellybell Designs their title collection, and I will link it below. It has the rides from Magic Kingdom, and I thought that was going to be super easy to add the title to this layout. I used the print and cut feature from the silhouette to print it out and then cut it out, but then I thought I needed a little bit of extra, so I cut it out again without printing it out just to have a second layer to it. And then I'm also going to add some Fun Foam to the back of it. I thought about using this pink fantasy banner behind the carousel, but I just didn't like the way that it looked. I wish it was just a little bit larger. It took a lot of tiny pieces of foam strip on the back of this title because there were lots of little pieces cut out. Each one of the letters in Carousel, the center pieces were cut out, so it took me a while to get all of the Fun Foam down. But I did finally get it down. And then I realized that the letter S from Charmings, so the title says Carousel Prince Charmings Regal, the S was separate. So I did have to add the second piece down as well as some Fun Foam and then add that S down to the title. Then I'm going to pull out the foam stickers and I'm going to add the castle over on the far right. That's going to cover up the hole that is there from the banner strip. I also had this little starburst that kind of reminded me of fireworks, so I added that next to the castle so it looks like the fireworks are going off behind the castle. Over on the left hand side, I added a little teal ticket that says admit 1 to it. And then I also added a little princess hat from the foam stickers as well. And then I found this flag piece that says happily ever after, and I added that behind the castle as well. And I feel like that bridges the castle to the fireworks. Back on the left hand side, I pulled out the camera piece from the embellishments and I did add some Fun Foam behind it just to give it a little bit of dimension to that cluster as well. I also inked the edges of that with the worn lipstick. And then back on the right hand side of the layout, I did pull out a little floral cluster that matches that yellow floral paper and added that right next to the castle. For the title piece, I did add another ticket in the pink that says admit 1, and then also another floral piece from the foam stickers. And then I pulled out the adhesive brads, and when I got the yellow one down, I realized that it was not stuck down properly, so I just added a little bit of a liquid adhesive to the brad piece and adhered it back down. Over on the right hand side, I felt like I needed some florals over there so that I have florals in each one of my clusters. And then I pulled out my color boxes in pink, blue, and yellow, and I was actually able to find this heart shape in each one of the colors, so I added that to each of the clusters. All right, that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I did my journaling offline, and it says, Eli, Jennifer, Nevaeh, and I embarked on a magical journey aboard this gorgeous carousel, spinning into a world of whimsy and giggles. Again, I want to encourage you guys to check out the playlist listed below so that you can see how everyone else is interpreting this Groundhog's Day hop. If you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.